Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you for joining us in this panel discussion on youth financial inclusion and from the perspective of Aflatun International. Um, as you know, financial inclusion has been in the heart of 20th century from policymakers and supervisors, and therefore youth access to financial product is becoming very important issue. For that, to tackle this one, Aflatun has conducted a survey to develop a tailored financial inclusion strategy for youth within our network of partners. And we would like to share this one with all of you. And for this, we have my colleague, Cristina Pena, um, senior program manager from Latin America, and also the consultant Daniel. I think after later on they will introduce themselves. Um, the objective of this one is to introduce you to the new strategy Aflatun had developed. What are the process it takes to develop this strategy? What are within our network, and why are we developing this strategy? The importance of youth financial inclusion for our network. And also we will introduce you, secondly, what are the key challenges, the landscape of youth financial inclusion within our network of partners, and what are the challenges they are facing when it comes to providing youth with financial services and also dealing with financial product institution. And finally, we will also share with you some best practices within our network, some best practices when it comes to youth financial inclusion. The third topic we will talk about would be the framework. What are the components of the youth financial inclusion framework? That come from the survey and the need assessment which was done within our network. And finally, we will introduce you to the next steps when it comes to this strategy. Okay, so maybe to start, to deep dive into the topic, I wish like Christina, maybe you can introduce yourself. Afterward, Danielle also can introduce herself.
Thanks, Mohamedou. As you were mentioning, I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Latin American region. I have been working with the Aflatun network since 7 years ago, and my background is related to the economics of development. So this is a key point to connect all the financial education and the financial inclusion that we are promoting in the network. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We are happy to have you with us. And Danielle, can you also introduce?
Yes, hi, I'm Danielle Hopkins. I'm the founder of Inclusive Finance Consulting, and I have a background in youth financial inclusion and digital and financial capabilities, and financial inclusion for women as well. And I've been working in this area for the last 20 years and have been working with Aflatun to help them develop this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you both. Myself, I am Mohamedou Bajaga, and I am the program manager for Francophone Africa. I've been working with Aflatun for about 5 years now. My focus is supporting Aflatun network growth in Franco-African region, and also I'm interested in financial inclusion topics. That's why we are here today to tackle the issue our network is facing. So to start with the first question to you, Christina, what's the role of Aflatun International in the global social and financial education? What is the role of Aflatun?
Thanks, Mohamedou. Well, basically, Aflatun International is an organization that is composed as well for a broad network of partners that are implementing our program. Our program basically, or our organization is based in 3 main pillars. They are focused in financial education for children and youth. That is one of the characteristics as well. That is on top of the financial education as well, we are using life skills. So this combination is the key that it makes different Aflatun from other programs. And we are promoting as well at the global level the promotion of the social and financial education, especially in the most vulnerable ones. But as well, we are focusing into deliver quality of social and financial education content for the teachers. And as well, we want to accelerate and scale up our programs using our network. Next one, please. To illustrate a little more about what we mean about this, we have right now in the middle of our strategy, we have a strategy that is from 2022 to 2026. Our aim is to reach out to 60 million of kids in the coming years using a network of 600 partners and as well with collaboration with governments using national integration. And as well, we want to reach out to 250,000 teachers. All of this is done with our network, as I was mentioning, and we are collaborating in different ways via the governments, but as well, we want to go beyond of this and start to collaborate with financial inclusion and financial institutions, So we have different strategy enablers for this, including the central one that is related to ignite and grow the global network of Aflatun. Next one, please. Basically, we have, as I was mentioning, this a big number of partners that are implementing our content. We are using a social franchise model when the partners take the content and they do the implementation in their own countries. This is a key part as well because we are using a contextualization. That means not only to translate the content, but as well to answer to the needs of the network. That as well is taking us to another level, that is as well to identify new needs or needs that were not covered before. And that includes as well financial inclusion, how we can combine all of these topics and go further with our programs. Next one, please. And as well as we were mentioning, we are present in more than 109 countries. This network is quite diverse. So we have not just small partners, NGOs or foundation, but we as well we are working with governments. The idea is to bring all this expertise from the network to the different countries, but as well to collaborate together to grow. Next one, please. And to summarize and to illustrate a little of our work, in 2022, we reached out almost 30 million of children and young people, and mostly our partners that are the ones that are implementing, they reach out more or less 4 million of kids. And as well, this network is more than 300 partners that includes as well alliance with different organizations that I was mentioning, like for example, universities as well. Next one, please. So I'm going to pass the voice to Daniel. The floor is yours to please do the connection between this financial education that we are now delivering to the financial inclusion.
Okay, thank you, Christina. I think that's quite big on a number of 29 million have you reached in 2022. That's quite a big number. But why Aflatun is now becoming more interested in youth financial inclusion? Why it's important to connect Aflatun work to the financial inclusion for youth? Daniel.
Thank you, Mohamedou. So I think when we talk about financial inclusion for youth, that's a key outcome or key pathway for Aflatun to achieve impact at the systems level with more teachers trained and certified. So teachers are key stakeholders for Aflatun. So more teachers trained and certified, and more schools that are teaching quality social and financial education, as Christina mentioned, and developing some of these innovative offline delivery models and digital models for vulnerable youth. And it's also linked to the 3 strategic objectives of the new institutional strategy. that Christina presented to improve inclusive and responsive education resources through these different delivery models, to grow the Aflatoon network, and to increase the thought leadership in this space. So I think that's it's very much linked. And in addition, Aflatoon is being approached by different organizations that are working on youth financial inclusion to provide some support in financial education. And also some of its existing members are also wanting to formalize some partnerships with financial institutions. So from both sides to connect financial education and youth financial inclusion more from a range of different stakeholders. Thank you, Mohamedou.
Thank you, Daniel. So, okay, we understand that now the connection is very important to bring youth to the youth for financial services, and also to bridge the gaps between financial literacy and financial inclusion. However, when we were developing the strategy, what are the approach Aflatoon have used to conduct or to assess the strategy, and also to come up with a new strategy which aim to improve youth financial inclusion within our network partner?
Thank you. So we used Aflatoon used a four-stage approach, which is based on best practices that could be used to design any type of strategy, really. But the first stage was to define. The first stage was to define, and that involved a lot of secondary research. So to identify best practices in youth financial inclusion, youth financial education, and different models as well. So that was the define stage. The diagnose stage, we worked to develop a survey and identify different members to provide the survey. We provided the survey to all of Aflatoon members, and then once we looked at the survey results, we tried to identify members that represented a range of different models that were also representative across all of the regions, to really get into more depth with those members and do some individual in-depth interviews with those members. And so we then developed an interview guide, and we conducted 10 individual in-depth interviews with the members, again, with that regional representation, and then did some analysis of these interviews. And from the diagnose stage, we used the diagnostic and then in the design stage, in the third stage. And we used that to develop a framework for the youth financial inclusion strategy. We did a co-creation meeting with Aflatoon staff to get feedback and to revise the strategy. Then also we did a needs assessment and some more in-depth interviews with with all of the program managers representing the different regions, and then developed a first draft of the strategy, then got feedback and did a second draft of the strategy. And then the final stage is of capacity building. And so we worked to develop a training design and did a half-day training with Aflatoon staff, and then plan to do also as well a capacity building session with members. So that was the whole sort of a four-stage process that we followed pretty much over a year period in 2022. Thank you, Mohamedou.
Thank you, Daniel, for explaining the process you follow, Aflatoon follow to develop the strategy. However, what are the findings from this process? What come out from this when it's come to the overview of youth financial inclusion into our network, within the network partner?
So there were a lot of really interesting findings that came out of the diagnostic. In the interest of time, we'll present just some of the key takeaways. But there definitely, you could see the link between financial education and financial inclusion for youth. So we asked, some of the partners how they measured success of the financial education program, and this was at the youth level. So we looked at different levels, at the level of youth and also at the institutional level. And at the youth level, the most common indicators of a successful financial education program were that youth were prioritizing their needs over wants, and saving for future needs or goals. So these are behavioral indicators. And the third most common indicator, which shows this direct linkage between financial education and financial inclusion, was this increased confidence to use financial services. So this is an attitudinal indicator that shows, again, this direct linkage between financial inclusion and financial education. And then we also looked at the model for youth financial inclusion. 69%, so almost 70% of the members that were surveyed reported that they provide some type of youth financial inclusion activity. And the most common type of model for providing youth financial inclusion are savings clubs, which are typically at the school level, savings clubs followed by financial education linked with financial services. So again, showing that strong linkage between financial education and financial services. And so those were some of the more common models. And in terms of partnerships, so how Aflatoon members will partner with different organizations to provide youth financial inclusion, the most common type of partnerships are NGOs and training institutes. Partnerships with financial institutions are a little less common, about 17%, but should be a key priority when promoting youth financial inclusion. And as we mentioned earlier, there are members that are interested more in formalizing some of these partnerships. They may have sort of more informal partnerships, but they want some technical assistance to formalize some of those partnerships with financial institutions. And then we also looked at the youth level. What were some of the challenges for youth financial inclusion at the youth level? Because youth are a key stakeholder in youth financial inclusion. And the most common challenges are low levels of financial literacy and lack of experience with financial services. So again, showing that linkage, that strong linkage between financial education and financial services. So low financial literacy, which can lead to lack of experience or lack of confidence with financial services, and then which will ultimately translate to not using the financial services. So these are also followed by, as I mentioned, low usage, and a lot of times that might be due to inappropriately designed financial products. So at the supply level, supply side barrier, and social and cultural norms are also perceived as an important barrier. So an environmental or a structural barrier. So these are common barriers that we see globally as well, challenges of youth financial inclusion. And then at the institutional level, some of the most common challenge for promoting youth financial inclusion is financial resources. So financial resources is a challenge, followed by staff capacity and institutional commitment. COVID-19 was seen less of a challenge for youth financial inclusion. But financial resources tend to be a common challenge, both for youth financial inclusion and for providing financial education. So those were some of the challenges at the institutional level. And we also asked that was very much aligned with this question were some of the technical assistant needs at the institutional level. So the most common technical assistant needs for youth financial inclusion that was identified by the members is capacity building. So that was a key challenge. And other important aspects include product development and monitoring and evaluation. So you can see sort of staff capacity, this product development, monitoring, evaluation. So these should be key areas that when you think about youth financial inclusion, these are integral areas. So these were some of the technical assistance needs that were identified by the members. Thank you, Mohamedou.
Thank you, Daniel, for bringing us through the challenges and also the landscape within the Aflatoon partner when it comes to youth access to financial products. However, there was also, it seemed like the partner are trying from their side to work with some financial institutions. There is some activities that some of them is doing. So can you just tell us what are the best practices that is within our network of partner when it's come? What are the most best practices there over there?
Okay, thank you. So some of the key best practices that are, sort of based on best practices globally for youth financial inclusion and that Aflatoon partners are demonstrating or are developing a segmentation strategy. So they might work with young girls or young women, or they might also be working with different age groups. So separating out different age groups, which is aligned with the different age groups for the Aflatoon curriculum as well. So that's, segmentation strategy where you work with different segments of youth based on their age, based on gender, could be based on their occupation as well, based on rural or urban, their geographic location. So those are some key things to think about as you think about a segmentation strategy. Also, institutionalization, promoting institutionalization of the program. So developing an organizational structure or a communication system or a youth champion, hiring other youth as well, sort of the peer educator model, and capacity building. So there's a lot of capacity building of teachers as well. So those are some key areas that help promote institutionalization of the program. Also, leveraging existing infrastructure and touch points, so reaching youth where they are, where they go to school, where they live, where they work, and looking at some of those teachable moments and touch points when they might have their first job or when they open their first savings account. So trying to leverage some of those, providing incentives as well at both the institutional level for staff to reach youth, and then also at youth level to provide them some type of incentives if they're opening an account, whether it might be a free passbook, something to give them some incentives to save. Also leveraging key influencers or trusted sources. As I mentioned, that peer educator model, which also promotes institutionalization, training to teachers and parents. Teachers and parents are key influencers for youth, community leaders, and could be female community leaders if you're working with young women. And then adopting a savings-led approach. So starting with savings first and helping them to save before at a young age, before you start talking about loans. And so that's also what a lot of Aflatoon partners are doing, particularly with the savings clubs that I mentioned in schools. And then lastly, protecting the rights and privacy of youth. And that's particularly important when you're talking about anything that's digital financial services, where there's a lot of fraud or scams or identity theft. And having also controls for debit cards. That is also, important. And then these are two key best practices that are, when we talk about youth financial inclusion, they're two very important best practices that we've mentioned already, providing that strong linkage between financial and non-financial services. So that might be integrating different topics like account management into financial education curriculum, or field trips to visit financial institutions, inviting staff as well from the financial institutions to the financial education sessions, and then adopting a life stage approach to financial and non-financial services. So some of the examples from partners, they're visiting schools through their financial education program or inviting staff in. You set savings goals as they set up their savings account, and they're using different platforms or chatbots to link youth to mobile network operators to send or receive money and provide information on how to save. So again, looking at that link with digital financial services. And then the second, which is very important and mentioned as well as the technical assistance need of some of the members, was this just exploring and formalizing partnerships with financial institutions. So aligning their institutional commitment, their infrastructure, their geographic outreach, and the different use segments. Those are key priority areas to consider when you talk about partnerships. So as I mentioned, some of the partners are in the process of formalizing some of these partnerships. And they partner with financial institutions for Global Money Week, which is a very important week for Aflatoon globally across the network. And they're inviting representatives from financial institutions in to provide sessions or to invite youth to open savings accounts. And they'll visit financial institutions to learn about how to use a savings account or how to use mobile money apps. And so the partnerships are occurring mainly at the local or village town level with microfinance institutions and cooperatives that target youth, or with banks that have small networks of microfinance institutions at the local level. And so, as I mentioned, the life stages approach, that is also very important in terms of best practices, and also the segmentation strategy that I mentioned. And so looking at the different financial milestones across the different age groups for early adolescence, older adolescents, and in young adults, so ages 12 to 15 and 15 to 18 and 18 to 24. And this again aligns the different Aflatoon curriculum for Aflateen and Afla Youth for the different age groups. And also the financial tools that are available to them at that age. So, starting with, again, that savings-led approach of a savings account, and then moving to, other types of products that might be appropriate for them depending on their age, such as an educational loan or microcredit or a business loan as they get older if they want to start a business. And then aligning the financial education topics with these key milestones or touch points, if it's their first job or opening an account or their first business. And so aligning topics around savings and money management and digital financial services and financial services, making that very much aligned with the different age groups. So thank you for that question, Mohamedou.
Thank you, Daniel, for presenting all the best practices when it's come to youth financial inclusion and linking it with financial education, which Aflatoon is trying to do at the best possible. Just one question maybe to Christina about how Aflatoon network member is bringing youth financial inclusion in connecting that with financial education. Daniel was talking about savings clubs within Aflatoon network. Can you maybe, within your experience, can you maybe explain a bit how Aflatoon network partners are making this connection when it comes to saving from the clubs to the financial institution, if you have any?
Thanks, Mohamedou. This is a key question because as well, one important part is to connect theory with practice. And one of the fundamentals of our programs is like you need to learn by doing. So usually the organizations that are implementing Aflatoon, they're using the figure that we call the Aflatoon clubs. Basically, it's a way to incentive the savings with the support of the peers to have a goal, set a common goal, and do a setting daily or weekly saving with a specific purpose. So we are connecting different topics here, and it's to identify what is my need, if I need something or if I want something, and as well to have a timeline to do it. And during the practice, these savings, you are changing your behavior. So we are talking about that it's not just the knowledge about the topic, but as well when you are practicing and developing certain skills, and that leads lately to a change in the behavior. Doing this since the early age, of course, has a big benefit in the long term for the individual. So when you become a young adult, that you are the transition from the school to work, you already have a set of tools that you can use and take informed decisions. So in this case, savings is one of the key ways to do it. But of course, there are other terms and actions associated with this, enhancing how do you take informed decisions and be as well and have a healthy financial financial health.
Thank you. I think that clarify a bit how the Aflatun is connecting financial education with financial inclusion within the network of partner, which is very important, the saving aspect of the program. I think also, Daniel, when you was conducting the survey, there might be also, beside of the institutional challenges and implementation challenges, there might be also challenges when it comes to legal law, when access to financial product themselves within the regulation challenges within the network. Can you give us some example which are the main challenges when it comes to regulatory issue within the network to access use for finance?
Sure, yes. And I think so anytime you're talking about youth financial inclusion, you have to think about the regulatory aspect and using like a market systems approach where you look at regulatory and then the supply side, institutional and demand side of youth. So at the regulatory level, there are many different challenges related to age requirements of when youth are able to legally on their own independently open an account and manage it independently on their own. So age is always a challenge. ID requirements is also a challenge because many youth do not have ID. And so those are, KYC requirements, age and ID are sort of key challenges at the regulatory level. And so that is something that different countries have worked to overcome. For example, in Ethiopia, where they lowered the age limit and they made it aligned more with when youth are able to work and align more with youth employment. So starting at age 15, if they have an employment card, employment ID card. So there are ways that regulators have worked to overcome some of those barriers and align youth employment and the age more to provide more access to financial services.
Thank you, because I think that's a very important aspect to mention when it's come to youth financial inclusion, is like the regulatory approach and challenges that many of the Aflatun network partners are having in the field. This challenges. Thank you for this, and I think that after presenting the approach, the methodology, the challenges, and the best practices we go through when developing the framework, the strategy. Can you now present us the framework, the strategy itself? What are the components and how these are going to resolve the issue Aflatun is facing within our network to improve youth financial education and also the access to financial services?
Sure, thank you. And so the framework for the strategy, which was very much based in this process that we followed that I mentioned of defining the problem and the diagnostic stage. In the design stage, which was the third stage, we designed 3 main areas. So the overview, which is to present sort of the vision and mission of the strategy and making sure that it's aligned with the institutional vision and mission of Aflatun. And then sort of 5 key areas which are the coordination mechanisms. So really to identify and map members, the sort of stakeholder mapping to identify who are the different key stakeholders, what are the different stages of youth and the different ages of youth, and really to promote coordination of members at the global and regional and national levels. So looking at some type of coordination body that can help with promoting youth financial inclusion. In terms of awareness raising, Again, looking at different channels, delivery channels on how to raise awareness among the key stakeholders that we mentioned, and the stakeholders involving at the policy side, at the supply side, the financial institutions, NGOs, and then on the demand side for youth. So looking across those three levels, how to raise awareness and how to build capacity as well within those key stakeholders. And then how to promote peer exchange within the Aflatoon network, among the different partners and members. And so how to look for different opportunities and channels to promote the peer exchange, and knowledge products, which helps as well with the capacity building, that knowledge products that promote some of the key areas and best practices in youth financial inclusion, whether it be toolkits or guidance notes. So looking to develop those based on the experience of Aflatoon and pulling together examples from members. And then the last piece is an action plan. And so the action plan is to pull together all of these different key areas and identify activities, and to develop a 4-year action plan that's aligned with the institutional plan of Aflatoon. And so, as I mentioned, in terms of the overview, it's the mission and vision, as well as some guiding principles, and keeping in mind as well the life stages approach. So the mission that was defined for the strategy is for Aflatoon to become a global advocate for youth financial inclusion through promoting innovative solutions at the policy, supply, and youth levels, and connecting, engaging key stakeholders at these levels. So again, looking at those 3 levels and how to raise awareness, build capacity, promote peer exchange, and engage key stakeholders at these levels. And then the vision is children and youth with social and financial education have increased knowledge, skills, confidence, and access to appropriate financial services to become financially included change agents. So again, keeping in mind that it's as Christina mentioned, that holistic approach of building knowledge, skills, attitudes, and confidence to ultimately promote a change in behavior. So that's very much aligned with the vision of the strategy. And then the strategy as well is based on 3 guiding principles. And these guiding principles link directly with the strategic objectives and the action plan, the activities. So the first guiding principle, which is key, is to promote inclusivity and privacy. And so that how to do that is to prioritize the most financially excluded and vulnerable children and youth segments, and protect the rights and privacy of youth, particularly around digital financial services, as I mentioned earlier. A second guiding principle is promoting a youth-centric design and delivery. So this again is aligned with the segmentation approach, looking at different youth segments, designing youth-friendly financial products and services that are very much aligned with the characteristics that and the preferences of youth, and ultimately that will promote financial independence, promoting digitization of financial services and financial education where it's appropriate and available, integrating key youth influencers, as I mentioned, teachers, parents, community leaders in the design and delivery of the programs, reaching youth where they are, again, looking at those different touch points, and providing quality, up-to-date, and practical financial education curriculum that promotes linkages to products based on their financial milestones or life stages, as we talked about earlier. And then the third guiding principle is institutionalization and stakeholder engagement. So again, really engaging and connecting these stakeholders at different levels, raising awareness, building capacity among these stakeholders, and conducting monitoring and evaluation and learning among the key stakeholders. So that's a key part to identify sort of best practices and lessons learned. And then there are 5 key components that emerged from the framework and that are linked directly with these guiding principles. So 5 key strategic objectives that also then inform the action plan. So and that are aligned with these guiding principles that I just mentioned. So developing a coordinating structure to promote youth financial inclusion, raising awareness on youth financial inclusion among key stakeholders, building capacity among these key stakeholders, providing these opportunities for peer exchange, networking, and learning, and then developing up-to-date digital knowledge products that promote youth financial inclusion. And then lastly, this is just an example of some activities that are included in the action plan. This is still sort of a working draft of the action plan. It needs to be formalized and endorsed by the members, so that there still is a process involved there of getting the buy-in of the members and making sure these activities are aligned with their objectives and that they're feasible to achieve. So that is still in process. But this is just an example of some activities that in terms of the first strategic objective of developing the coordinating structure. So it's a 4-year action plan, as I mentioned, and it provides these different activities for each of the strategic objectives, also provides key stakeholders, and then prioritizes the activities in the timeline. So you can see here some of the activities to map out, identify the stakeholders, develop terms of reference, and expand their platform to facilitate some of the communication and coordination at different levels. So that's all that's all for my part. I turn it back over to you, Mohamedou. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for bringing us through the framework and also the guiding principle and the action plan, which might maybe resolve the issue the network partner is having when it comes to youth financial inclusion. But however, I have one question about what would be the role or the part of the financial institution within all of the framework. What would be the role they have to play, and what are the different stakeholders which are going to be involved when it comes to operationalizing this in a more inclusive way to have the output and the result we are expecting?
Thank you. So I think as we mentioned earlier, financial institutions play a key role, and some of AFLATON members are looking to develop more partnerships with financial institutions. So financial institutions offer products, but they're not often youth friendly. So I think first it's really, raising awareness among these financial institutions of what are youth friendly services, whether it's a low balance savings account, minimum fees. Looking at some of those key characteristics that's sort of flexible, convenient, affordable, looking at some of these desired characteristics of financial products for youth, and that they can access. So I think first and foremost is to raise awareness on what are youth-friendly financial products for them, and how to design those products to meet the needs of youth and identify what are the needs of youth. And so I think that's very important. I think also some financial institutions might be offering some type of financial education directly. And so having, again, raising awareness on the importance of financial education linked directly with financial services. If not, encouraging through the network partnerships between, financial institutions and AFLATON members that are already providing financial education. So looking at how they, to formalize some of those partnerships so that they can link directly the financial services and financial education. So financial institutions have a key role to play in the design of the products, but also in, if not offering directly, at least providing, the option and through these partnerships of providing financial education as well, so youth know how to manage the financial services.
Thank you for explaining the roles of financial institutions. Indeed, they have to play a big role for developing the product, and also maybe training the users about how to use those products and how to access I think that maybe Christina, about I think that the strategy itself is a very ambitious strategy and framework. What would that bring in terms of financial inclusion? What will be improve? How this will improve financial inclusion within our network if we operationalize this strategy? What are your thoughts about how this will bring new and improve our the access of our network partners to the financial product and institutions?
Thank you, Mohamedou. This is a key point because actually, as Daniel was mentioning, the idea is to connect the financial milestones of the youth and children, the financial tools, and the financial education topics. So you don't have a separate intervention, but have a more holistic approach where the information that we are providing to the kids makes sense to them and as well how they are going to use it. Nowadays they are very they know how to use the technology, etc., but that doesn't mean that they are good at taking the right decisions. So actually they are one of the most vulnerable ones to scams, for example. So if they don't have the right information or the proper offer of services, they can look for other services that actually are not the ones that are guaranteed to have the proper service, or they are going to have they are going to be victim of scams. So if they are going into the network and they find, for example, a loan that is offered by a random organization, they are thinking that they are going to have a good opportunity, but at the end they are having a problem. So if the financial institutions actually are going to be working together to provide the proper financial education plus tailored financial services, is going to enhance, of course, the financial health of the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We are about heading to the end of this panel discussion. Maybe for the next steps, I heard that Daniel said that it's still work in progress. I mean, so it still need some aspect of the framework. But what is the next step, Christina, when it comes to Aflatoon? What are the next steps for this?
Well, yes, that is a key part. That is, we want to keep working with the network. One important part is as well that we have been doing this mapping. This initiative actually was coming from the network itself. So they are already working with this topic and they already identified these gaps. So the idea is as well to be working to identify these benefits and make more explicit what are these options to have a better well-being. And we are talking about not just about the economic part, but as well, we are talking about the psychological health, as I was mentioning with the scams. So it's basically raise proper awareness about the benefits of this combination of financial education and financial services, and as well to support the network and to enhance the capacity of the organizations, but as well to gather information from them. That is one of the strong parts of our network. They build together this knowledge. And of course, it's a key part is to mind the gap between the financial and the financial education and the financial inclusion. Of course, financial institutions are key part of this point. So they become aware of the topic and develop services that are tailored for the kids and for the youth. As well, in the sense of like we are talking about these products during the design, we have to consider the needs of the children, but as well how they follow the protection of the children and youth people based on the banking product for children and young people. As Daniel was mentioning, there is already regulations that a principle that guide the development of these products, but now we need to go to the next step is to have this framework that is useful for the network to connect with the financial institutions and go from the savings at home or in other ways to really use these savings via the financial services that are going to be provided in a good way for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I think that's very interesting next steps. But maybe a last point, maybe for Daniel, any last thought about the framework, about all the next step, about the challenges? What's the key messages for the end of this panel?
I think what I mentioned before, and you can see sort of a common theme across all of the framework, and that is really this engagement, raising awareness and engagement, building capacity of key stakeholders, but really having this holistic approach of it, who are those key stakeholders? So looking at the policy level, which Aflatun works with, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance is also, very important. So looking at some of those line ministries or the central bank, at the policy level, at the supply level, both for supply of financial education and also financial services. So looking at, NGOs, schools, universities, training institutes, for the financial education piece, and financial services, looking for different financial institutions, microfinance institutions, cooperatives. And then at the demand level, engaging youth, which Aflatun youth is at the center of Aflatun's work, and taking that segmentation approach of working with different segments of youth. So I think that holistic approach of really engaging the stakeholders, raising awareness, building capacity, capturing some of the lessons learned and some of the best practices, and then that monitoring and evaluation is just that common thread throughout of really this engagement and engaging those different stakeholders and taking that holistic approach, I think is really key for a sustainable long-term program.
Thank you, Daniel, for summarizing all the framework development process and what are the key elements important for the implementation. And really, it's very important also what you have been saying about the monitoring and evaluation. It's very important to have this aspect also in mind, so that we can reflect on what's work and what's not working and improve things as we are implementing. So thank you both. We are at the end of this panel. It has been my pleasure to be with you, and have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.